sign already?
I went up there, this is like,
Yeah,
a
well,
lot of the homes have doors.
I had a friend who worked there,
And I'm a cashier.
and he said when he shoved
Either way.
it was late, it was an excuse, but it was.
We are now recording.
Good for him, though, I'm sure it's.
So if anyone here had not signed up on the attendance roster, you haven't. Okay, so we'll get it. No. Slow and like that.
Expecting Brady.
So let's see. Anybody here who hasn't? So do we have a quorum?
Yes,
We do.
we met in a quorum today.
Thank you all for coming. Welcome. Onsite Wastewater Advisory Board meeting. We haven't been meeting very frequently over the last year because frankly, there's been no agenda items and I just couldn't see the point in having everybody come here and spend their time just to adjourn. So if you felt that we should have met more frequently, then you can blame me. So I think the first item actually up here is the appointment of officers. And so probably we should go ahead and do that. I am perfectly willing to continue to chair if that's the will of the group, but anybody who would like to take over that responsibility.
I'll make that motion. You good, Dennis? You good also?
Yeah, are you okay for vice chair?
I guess I'll expire before the end of the year.
You will expire. I hope not. I hope not.
My term expires for the.
Well, that may be so, but reappointment is certainly possible. So I wouldn't let that deter you.
Okay.
Any other nominations? Any comments? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you, I guess. All right, then second item is the adoption of the agenda. I think everybody should have gotten information and approval of the agenda and discussion of County Code 51 and what its current status is. I thought one other thing that we might want to just briefly talk about is the process of appointment. There are two county health department representatives who are not, who are positions that are not filled. And the two individuals who are most actively involved in this group are both no longer with the health department. So I thought we should just sort of understand what that process is, what's going on, and so forth. So we understand, what is going to go on in the future. If you lose too many people, of course, you can't have a quorum. Anybody willing to propose that as approval of that for the agenda for the meeting?
I will.
Okay.
So moved.
Second. Okay. Any further comment? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Next item of the agenda is the approval of the meeting from the last year. That was almost a year ago. As I think those of you who are here know that the county ordinance that was proposed basically had to be approved by the state, and at least up until now, we haven't gotten either approval or the comments and what would be required to approve it. And that was the main item that we had been working on for some period of time. And it seemed a kind of a waste of time to, come here unless there was a specific agenda item, and nobody had proposed any specific agenda items. So that was the reason why we didn't meet. And I think everybody should be aware of, if anybody on the board feels that there's an item that they would like to discuss, they should inform me or Melanie, and we'll see that it gets on the agenda. Important thing is that we're here to talk about issues that relate to onsite wastewater, and that's what we're here to do. But if there's nothing anybody wants to discuss, then we probably all have better things to do.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Okay, so second.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, so the next item is County Code 51 overview, review, and update. Is there someone here who can?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
So for those in the room who I haven't met yet, I'm Brianna. I am the new Director of Environmental Health here at the Health Department. And my understanding is that the state had a slew of comments. I believe that's what our last meeting last year was in regards to, is just to kind of go over the comments that the state had sent, what they thought, that what they assumed the TRP would not approve of. So I think the health department's stance at that time was to send it to the TRP anyway, because we wanted it documented of what they would or would not approve, and not just have the state give us what they thought would be commented on. So I believe that the TRP said they were not accepting any ordinances. So even if we wanted to submit it and have their stamp of denial or approval, they were not accepting anything because they were rewriting 410 anyways. So I believe this July is when they'll be voting on their
July 1st is when the new code is supposed to go into effect.
Okay. So the TRP does have a draft on their website that does change a lot of the definitions of failure. And it will be, a lot of counties in the state will have to really, us included, really have to change the way we look at those. But that's kind of where we're at with the Code 51 at this time.
So basically, in July, then can we review what we do and see which things do not fit
Yeah.
the
So-
code, and then resubmit, or is?
That's, I think, the plan ahead of us. Yeah. So right now theirs is just a draft. I don't think it's an approved final version. So I think we're waiting to know that that's been like certified to go ahead, and then we'll look at our ordinance.
And there is a bill that has been submitted to the legislature that also deals with a lot of things that may affect local agencies, merging of committees and lots of new rules. And we don't really know what's going on until until we see what happens to that bill and process. I chair the Onsite Regulatory Commission, and one of the things in that bill is to merge that group with a group involved with endangered species. Part of the bill basically causes all members of the advisory, the board, to terms to end on July 1 and be reappointed. So a whole new group will be reappointed by the governor. I don't know if they'll all be new. But so lots of changes going on during this legislative session, and we don't really know what's going to happen after July 1.
We know what bill that's in.
I didn't write it down, but it's another governmental reorganization bill. Right. So there is a lot going on in Indianapolis, and I don't think we're going to really understand a lot of things, especially with regard to local regulations, because those are, I mean, the idea of not having any rules or that exceed either health department standards or federal EPA standards and so forth is part of these things. And so there's a lot of reorganization of rules, ordinances, and bills that are going on, but it's still a moving target.
So are we currently operating under the state ordinance then and not, because ours is null, right? Is that my understanding then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So does anybody have any comments or questions or, it certainly seemed appropriate for us to meet at least once a year. That seems to be a necessity, but just so everybody understands what's going on. But it's certainly not the health department or the people here that are holding this up. And, these processes just have to go on. That's all there is to it. And this, every other year tends to be a light year. This is the year for more heavy changes in legislature, session. So, we just don't really know what's going to happen until the end of the session.
And I think the draft that they've posted, I think the biggest impact it feels is all the conversation around dry wells, because that's been so, I guess I'll just say fuzzy. Is that the state doesn't like dry wells, but now it's kind of more defined on how we need to proceed with that.
Defined as like what it is.
So do you want to speak about?
Sure. First of all, my name is Katie. I'm an environmental health specialist here in our septic team. I'm just not a member of this board. So I went through the proposed changes to Rule 410, and one of the biggest ones that will affect our office and your businesses is the definition. They define a cesspool and a dry well. They actually spell out what that is. And then in two separate areas, they update the definition for residential OSS failure to include sewage or effluent discharged to a dry well or cesspool. Full stop. And then later in the code, I don't remember under which section, it says a cesspool or dry well with or without a septic tank is not a suitable means of residential sewage disposal.
So this is retroactive or?
I don't know. Since these codes are supposed to change in July, I'm guessing late spring, the health, State Department of Health will start posting trainings for local health departments, and we can find out what exactly that means for us and then review.
That was one of the debates we had anyways, right?
Well, we certainly were trying to do everything we could to discourage dry wells. So, one thing that, again, those of you who are new or haven't been here, I've been involved in this for a very long time, more than 20 years. And one of the things that was the first sort of major thing to tackle, not so much by this group, which is a relatively new one, but by the Water Resources Advisory Board, was what to do to protect the groundwater resource in this area. And as I think everybody knows, the fact that one of the few big aquifers which is stable and which is relatively unpolluted is one of the reasons that we're seeing lots of new things coming into this area that are, helping to reinvigorate, what used to be the Rust Belt. And those things to protect the aquifer became very important. And as I said, they have been successful. The one thing that is complicated is, of course, large numbers of septic systems that are in it. Most of the county is okay, but there are areas where by normal definitions, there are at least 6 times the density of septic systems that would be regarded as safe. So, those issues about what to do, especially for new development and so forth, are are obviously important. And this group, which basically advises the health department on, or has advised the health department on regulations that deal with septic systems, is also an important part of protecting our aquifer. So I think that's the reason why this has been an important group, and hopefully it will continue. There have been complications, obviously, due to changes in authority and regulation of the state itself. But the reason that there were some exceptions that were proposed for the county, where we do have situations here which are pretty much unique to this part of the state, and having a level set of regulations that affect every part of the state. I think the position of this group was that some of those, there should be some tighter regulations in some respects here, tighter than some other parts of the state where they don't have an important aquifer to protect. So that's sort of one of the reasons why there were proposals to modify some of these and make some of the rules a bit more stringent to protect the ground.
I think you're speaking a lot about the property transfer program that was implemented, I assume. Do you know if it was more preventative or if there was actually showing like increased signs of like groundwater contamination? Do you know like what that main contaminant was? Was it like nitrates or?
Yeah, we did a study in 2014, was it? Right?
I think it was actually earlier than that.
2012 possibly. But yeah, so we sampled water wells every month for a year, and nitrate was the main contaminant, but we also found antibiotics, sulfamethoxazole, which is for women, urinary tract infections. We found traces of that, some of the same as well. So it's through monitoring wells and actually sampling people's homes.
The one that I thought was most amazing and somewhat concerning was really a non-toxic substance, but DEET, that's the primary active ingredient, raid gutters and what have you. That doesn't break down very well, and there was amazing amounts of that in people's wells in the Granger area. And that doesn't mean that represented a health hazard. It means that there was a fair amount of material that was being disposed of in septic systems that was going right back into the water lines. And obviously, things like bacterial contamination, other things which are not easily measurable, but knowing that there was a path back to people's drinking water was something that I felt was pretty concerning.
Chloride too was also pretty high in septic areas.
Or it typically come from
What's people's
water sulfur
Yeah,
degeneration.
correct. One into their
Exactly. But if I remember correctly,
road salt.
And roads, yeah.
those high levels, those hits were in areas that had deep retention basins
The D
and not
was
the areas that were primarily dry wells.
The D was. you're
No,
correct.
it wasn't dry wells, but it was shallow wells, especially the water wells were shallow.
Right, but it was, if I remember correctly, Hinton's Bittersweet West had pretty good water. But Partridge Woods didn't. And personally, I have concerns about runoff into dry wells.
Yeah,
Or not dry wells, but runoff into deep retention basins.
well, we also,
Because you're cutting off a lot of filtering.
and we also did, what's the neighborhood just south of town? Gilmore Park.
Yeah, Gilmore Park was-
Extended it into that, and but that was actually bad. There was no doubt about that.
Some of them were over the EPA water quality standard as being safe.
So it started at Granger. We had wells on the Michigan state line because there was rumors that it's all the pig farming in Cass County coming down and nitrates. to go higher, but it was mainly the shallow wells and the denser communities. And Gilmore Park was really just
Yeah.
you know, the icing on top that proved it was obviously a problem.
And a lot of that area has deep dry wells that go,
Right.
especially southwest of that and, Miami Trails. They have dry wells that cut through the till and go straight into the outwash.
Yeah, because we were getting hits in Gilmore Park from even the deep wells there. Granger was mainly the shallower, when I say shallow, 60 feet. A lot of the 100-foot wells didn't have a lot.
Is Gilmer Park in the sole source aquifer?
Right on the edge.
So the point is that the request for having some standards that were a bit more stringent than the state imposes to the state were not, they weren't arbitrary or capricious. They really were based, and everybody on the group was in favor of those changes. There was no dissension at all. But we still have to deal with the state rules and what they're trying to achieve, which is obviously reduced regulation. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we don't want reduced regulation to essentially hurt the economic future of this area.
So do we know if that 410, will it allow St. Joe County to go above and beyond some of the things?
That's the TRP's for.
Yeah.
So none of that's changed.
Well, there were proposals, but they haven't been approved, and apparently they're not going to act on that until they get the state legislation worked out, state rules for the health department, and then we have to go back and compare them with local rules and see if there's any additional exceptions that. that
So they
we
may
want to propose,
approve that.
which they might
later
not.
on.
May not.
One of the comments Brett made was that some of our proposals are repetitive to the new one, so we can probably just be able to remove a lot of them.
I'm curious what the installers think, how the dry well stuff is gonna impact.
Jacob's not here,
So just so you hold it down.
but Jacob is pro dry well, or we called it a air infusion, something or another. He just changes the wording behind it. I'm just relieved that the state's actually acknowledging the fact that dry wells are still an issue and not saying it's a one word, literally a one sentence comment in a 60-page document, and that we can have a cut and dry
Yeah.
definition of what they are. I mean, that's what we're lacking when it comes to that.
Yeah, I've been pretty annoyed because we'll have somebody modify a dry well, install a riser on it or something like that. It's not clearly addressed anywhere in the code. But it also doesn't say that you can make a dry well out of paper mache either. So like, where do you draw that line?
In some sense, it's easier. In a lot of senses, a lot more challenging, but cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess.
So, are there any other questions or comments about this whole thing? If not, then I think.
Hi.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, please.
I'm Tamara Harkey, I'm for a Coldwell Banker, so I'm the token realtor in the room.
There's no such thing as token.
So, kind of like what Walt said, I'm very much in favor of continuing these inspections. And if they make us go away, the mandatory stuff, it makes it goes away. I think it's going to be key to continue to inform and educate the real estate industry of the importance of these water tests and stuff like that, so we can, protect the aquifer. I personally live on the south side and I'm outside the aquifer, but I would never dream of buying a house or selling a house on that south side because of the type of water clay that's down there. So.
Have you heard of a proposal to remove that language about property transfers in the sole source aquifer?
It's not in the contracts at all. It's,
But they can still do it.
oh yeah, as an agent that's been around before they were mandatory, 2005, I would never dream on having a client buy a house without the water test and the septic inspection. As a matter of fact, I'm buying one right now in Elkhart, and the agent's questioning me why I'm doing these inspections. Hello, due diligence. So, I think as real estate or realtors, probably, are only here and gone after a couple of years, it's going to be very important to continue that education if that goes away, to make sure that we are protecting everybody, and not every property is going to be bought and sold, but at least that's a big chunk of it that we're protecting.
Well, I mean, it's mandatory if it hasn't sold in the last 15 years.
Correct,
isn't it?
but
So,
you can,
but do you think it's gonna, have people been trying to push that rule change to get rid of it? Okay.
in our office, it's been a non-issue, and in St. Joe County, it's been a non-issue. But when you're a selling agent, to not have it just because you're not in the aquifer, or you haven't been bought and sold in the last, you can destroy a septic in 3 months. So, you're gonna want to get those. So I think it's gonna be up to us to continue to push for those inspections.
Anything else? Okay. Right, so perhaps somebody could explain where we are in filling the open seats on the board, and
Yeah, so I'm happy to talk about that. I know the Board of Health needs to fill the municipal water or wastewater system employee. And I know John Lynn has contacted several, he's just waiting to hear back on who the lucky guy or gal is. But I don't think that's finalized quite yet, but we anticipate that should be handled before the next meeting here.
Okay.
And then David's filling our at-large position from the Board of Health as well. So it should just be that municipal water employee that we're waiting on. But again, hopefully our next meeting we'll have a lot more, because that position will be filled, and I imagine that board time will be a lot more finalized by that point.
that'd be great.
That'll be a real spicy one.
Yeah.
Because I'm gonna miss that one.
I wouldn't count on that. We won't meet again for another year.
What do we need to do? Do we need to bring bagels?
So it just depends. We're going to.
The way we've been operating is, when we approach the next quarterly meeting, Melanie and I have a conversation. We take a look at what agenda items have been proposed, and then so far I have basically told her that we didn't really have anything to discuss, that we should just postpone the meeting. And we've been in limbo here for a whole year, so that's the reason why we didn't have a meeting. But I think once we have some of this stuff caught up, then we definitely need to look at it in detail and reconsider it, see whether or not we're satisfied with the way it is, or we want to make some changes.
Did the county ever, we talked a couple years ago, they were going to implement a software, but did that ever happen, or where happened to that?
Oh, was it when we had the presentations?
Right.
Ultimately, the county and looked at another plan. I don't know whether they adopted the other plan. Do you know where we are on that? This is the computerization of essentially records and everything else. I thought that was approved.
I thought
But it was,
that's in place or
Yeah,
not, or-
right, but it was a different company than the one that
Correct.
had.
Correct. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I want to use this as an opportunity to say that now they have us record these meetings and post them. So let me choose my words real carefully.
Yep.
We don't love it. It's definitely designed for certain, like I know code enforcement, it certainly works well for what, well,
They're transitioning.
yeah. It's been challenging because it's not built for permits. It's not built for what we do. It was hopefully going to be a forward facing software so that the public could see where their permits were at. Is this what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think it was to help streamline
Yeah.
on your guys' side, so it's
Yeah.
not so much people just calling in, wasting everybody's time, answering, getting back to people once they.
So this software hasn't been, again, we don't love it. So we have been working with our data analyst who does coding at the health department. And we're kind of in still the building part of it, but he has built something that we like much better. And so our hope is that we can get that out in the second quarter of the year. Will it be perfect right away? Probably not, but we're still kind of working through some of the kinks. It should be, at our next meeting, I can kind of even like put it up and go through it, but it's better than, the software we were given. But it's just kind of like when someone submits, an application, they'll get, a link, and then that link, if they click on it, will show them what they need to do, if that's been completed or not, and then what we need to do. And if that's been completed, there's a place for them to upload drawings or submit comments, just whatever. If they want to ask a question, there's got all that fun stuff in there. So we're hopeful that it will, be functional, unlike what we've been using. And then, like you said, it will hopefully make it easier for staff and also for the public so that they can just click on link, see what's going on. But that's not quite ready today.
I mean, I think initially, obviously, there was talk about multiple departments doing all the same thing, but I think that where it started was, a couple of years back, it was backlogged so long, it was taking 3, 4 months, 5 months to get a septic permit on new construction. And it's like, what can we do to help streamline that process? Is it, and I'm sure, a lot of it's staffing, there's a lot of different things, but it was just, I know there was a lot of talks and there was a couple of presentations about that. And I thought something, I just didn't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we talked, I can't remember, but
Yeah.
I just didn't remember where that was at.
Yeah, so hopefully next meeting again, we'll have something we can kind of go through it together, and you guys can give feedback too for those of you that were active working with it.
So actually, there were two pieces of this. One was to basically digitize a lot of the health department's data.
Right.
So it could be accessed. So is that part of this process? So that's still.
Yeah, so you're talking about like if people need schematics or something.
Yeah.
That would not be included in what we're talking about.
Okay.
But archives has been digitizing everything.
Right.
So that chunk should be easier on our end, and then we speed it up because we don't have to call for things anymore. That, Melanie, when did they say that was gonna be?
So I spoke with Miguel, I believe he's the assistant director, I believe, with archives. He said they're a quarter of a way for our archives to be done. So I'm hoping to hear back from them shortly.
Will that adjust the turnaround time?
I was just.
That's the goal. Yeah, that is the goal.
Because we went from like 4 days, now we're at 9 or 10.
Well, and I'll say a big chunk of that is going through, because we were instructed that it has to go through the FOIA process because it's like county data or whatever that people have to submit Freedom of Information Act for. The problem with that is that on our end, it's pretty quick, but it has to go through the county, then the department, then us. So we have had discussions on how this has impacted, because we've received several comments. So we are aware of that, and it's not our goal to make everyone's jobs take longer. So we are exploring other options.
So any other questions or concerns that anybody would like to raise?
I think this whole discussion right now is concerning. Since we were told what the software would do and why it would streamline the process. And now to hear that it's not functional for you, for the health department, frankly, it's concerning. I would like to have heard that, speaking as one of 3 commissioners, I would like to have heard that back when you first discovered that there was a problem.
And I think a big issue is that the rollout was so slow. We were told
A year ago, then
over a year ago.
summer.
It was supposed to be ready the beginning of 2025. And it was supposed to be ready mid 2025, and then it was supposed to be ready beginning of 2026. And we keep getting it pushed back farther and farther. And like I said, it doesn't particularly seem designed for us. I can see where it benefits other municipalities, but not us. And I'm struggling to see how it would have ever been something that the public could access, I guess. There's parts of it that the public can access, but as far as permits are, it's been a challenge.
We can create notes and notify the public and things like that, but public wants to know when they're gonna get their permit. That's not really something we can do accurately.
But I was told, again, one of three, I was told that the software would allow the public to go in there and say, okay, this is when the application was made. This is where it's at as far as review by the building department, review by the health department, review. That was the whole, for us sitting on the one floor down, we were excited to hear that because as Adam or somebody said a moment ago, that was the biggest complaint in my tenure here, that people had a tough time understanding.
But I think that was the one that they did the presentation,
Right.
that firm.
Part of the confusion is that the promises for all of that stuff was the presentation that we got.
But they
And in the end, that proposal was rejected, the company was rejected, and another company that had developed a relationship with the county was substituted for that. And we never really got an opportunity to hear a presentation of exactly how the health department data were going to work in there. I think the assumption was that it should be the same, but obviously it was not.
What, if memory serves, is because it wasn't applicable to all the departments.
It was not direct. Yeah, it was supposedly it was.
Great for the health department,
Right.
but not for everybody else. So I think that's why they went.
Oh, you mean the first one?
The first one.
Yes, absolutely.
And it sounds like that was.
And the one that was adopted was supposed to cover everything, but not obviously in the same kind of detail that was described. So I think it was all, in some ways, we made the assumption that everything that had been promised in the first discussion was going to happen. And I don't think that was actually part of the guarantee when they went with the company that ultimately
Which we never got any presentation.
And we never heard from them, yeah. No.
So if you get an application, you can't update the status in any way that the public could
You can
see,
in some ways.
but not in any way that meaningful way.
Like if we can probably do something along the lines of. So like if it's listed like a step-by-step process, I don't think that's really in the Civic Gov. But you can't say we've completed this step and this step at different points. But it's not really gonna tell the homeowner or client, expect your permit in a few days or a week or
And that's
something like that.
ultimately all they really want to know.
I'll give you an example. It had nothing to do with the health department, but local industry wanted to add on to their building. And they submitted an application for building permit October. And I got a call in just before the holidays. Can't find out where my application is. So dug into it, found out that they were missing quite a few documents, but it was my understanding that that was the whole purpose of the software, was that they could say, okay, you did submit it on October 1st. Well, wait a minute, we don't have a plumbing plan. We don't have there were 4 or 5 items. So how can you expect, to the constituent, how can you expect to know why weren't you couldn't ask them, but should have gone back and asked the building department, why wasn't he notified? Why couldn't he see that by accessing that software? Sean helps put me on the right track on that.
honestly, I don't think the building department is using the new software yet, so
They're
that's,
still on that.
yes. They're not, they're not the only ones, so.
Yeah, the permitting software is not really ready to go yet, but we're getting closer on the code enforcement module.
Which would mean probably nothing for septic permits, but again, it seems like it was built for violation, and documenting codes, like parts of it are cool, but it doesn't quite fit the purposes of what this group is looking for, or what anyone getting a septic permit would be looking for.
It's foods permit.
Yeah, yeah.
So hopefully maybe you could sort of run through or what's covered, what's in the works and so forth at our next meeting.
Yeah.
So we can get a better sense of where we are and what things, if any, need to be pushed for. Or you guys need help in order to make it work the way we need to have it.
Yeah, more than anything, we really, for our next meeting, would love everyone's feedback, because we don't want to implement something just to say we implemented because we said we would do. We said we'd give you some software you can see. We want it to actually benefit everyone. And so that's kind of how we got into this, is because the pre-existing one wasn't really benefiting us or the public. So anyway, but yeah, we can go through that.
Does each department head, I mean, have point of contact with whoever's, I mean, how's that work with the software? With it, what's current or what's,
Well,
or is there like IT department's kind of running it all, or, I mean, who's head?
to be honest, so with Civic Gov, I mean, we can see like if again, we haven't gone through the permitting part too deeply because they haven't really built that for us yet. I think there was an issue where long story short, the data that we had in our current system, FileMaker, was given like a permit number, but then the system had like a background number that whatever. So when they tried to transfer everything over, it was using the wrong number and all the data got swapped around. So, what was my point? What was my point? What was my point though? Oh, so my point is that with the permitting, we haven't really dived into that part of the software. Where what they have built or what they've shown us is more so the code enforcement part of it. So when we get complaints for my neighbor has, I think there's effluent on the surface or whatever, and we go out there, that can be documented and we can see if county code enforcement was out there for something similar. But beyond that, I don't see, again, the permitting part hasn't been completed, so I don't know that we are able to see.
I guess what I was asking is,
Can we see if the permits through other departments?
who's taking lead in the whole, is it each department has contact, or who's, if there's issues with it that need to be corrected or have redo the software to make it work for what you guys need to be, I guess.
Yeah, we have like,
Who's the point person for
we have
that?
like monthly meetings with Joe McCollum,
Who's works for
Civic Gov,
Civica?
and then Francisco Botia.
But yeah, he's kind of the liaison on the county side.
I guess that's what I was trying to.
Yeah.
A lot of the feedback we've gotten is that we can't make it do this. We can't make it do that. So it can do a lot of stuff that would be beneficial, but what we're saying would be better, they're saying, well, we can't make it do that. So it just is kind of, it is what it is, or at least that's what we've been told.
And you're talking to a builder, so there's always ways to do something.
Right.
You just gotta figure out why, and what it's gonna take to do that. So you're just not asking the right questions or talking to the right person, or say, well, this isn't what we were told we were supposed to be doing. So what's the fix on that? So I guess that's where I'm angling at that, where
Yeah.
if we can help as an advisory board, put some pressure on that or not. I mean, I don't.
There's been like recording. There have been a lot of conversations about it from multiple people to multiple people. It just seems it's not in the best place right now.
Sure.
So certainly I can talk with our director of operations and our health officers about your guys's impact and your feedback and how we can talk with Frank and Joe and see. But so far, yikes.
Yeah, I mean, I think go back, I mean, I think obviously you guys are what's using for what you guys need to, but I think the whole intent was to, whatever it's gonna take to help you guys get more efficient.
Yeah.
Whether it's more information for the public to see, or maybe it's not, maybe it's just internally more efficient, so it's less back and forth or whatever. Procedurally, I mean, I think that was the initial intent.
Right, yeah, well, we backed it.
And it was also hoped that this could free up staff time.
Correct.
Okay, so you can actually focus on what you're
Right.
supposed to do. And
Yeah.
not just spend your whole time entering data.
You know, yeah.
We're trying to retrieve hard to find information that was wasting time so that you could present it and answer questions. Seems like that's pretty important part of this. Anything else?
You looked at SB 410. The bill that's currently being considered by the legislature. That if maybe I got the number wrong.
It's a state code 410.
State code. But somebody said that the legislature is considering some changes.
They're revising the state code.
And that's being considered now
Is it July? They're gonna, for the final approval.
because it'll come out as coded July 1st, right, with the new state fiscal year.
It's not the legislature that is revising Rule 410. It is the technical review panel and the Department of Health.
Okay.
So there's no bill that you can track on the IGA website, but you can go to the technical review panel's website and see the proposed changes they have made, and their approved minutes from that meeting, see what they discussed, but it's not the state legislature doing that.
Sorry for the misunderstanding on my.
But you were saying something about maybe some rule changes in the state.
Oh, yeah, that's going on as well. That's going on as well. Anything else? I think we only have one person here. Do you have a comment that you'd like to make?
I do not. Thank you for letting me give my input on.
Oh,
what I
appreciate
thought
it.
Rule 410.
Appreciate it very much. Okay.
That's-
If there's nothing else, may I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.